Power Rangers Vengeful Vanguard. Chapter 5. Lovers' Unknown Clash. CJ walked through the invisible barrier and the village came into view. She walked up to one of the elders who sat there shaking her head. "Hey Mary, you okay?" CJ asked with a warm smile. "I worry about Connor," Mary replied. CJ didn't know Connor personally, but she had seen him around. She knelt down and looked at the old lady who sat in her rocking chair. "What's up with Connor?" CJ asked with a bit more worry to her voice. "He was rambling, making no sense. Something about power and stopping monsters. It was all gibberish," Mary said. "Alright, Mary, I'll find Connor," CJ told her. "He said he was going to the city. That goddamn boy," Mary snapped. CJ reassured the old lady that she'd find Connor, and then she made her way back to the city. CJ roamed the city streets of the lower section, keeping an eye out for Connor. Suddenly, the crowd before her started running away in fear. She ran in the opposite direction, towards the source of the crowd's fear. There, she found a squad of cogs attacking someone fighting back. It was Connor. CJ waited, watching intently, slightly impressed by Connor's fighting skills. He backflipped, kicking one of the cogs in the chin, then he slammed his fist into another's torso. One cog managed to get the upper hand by slamming its foot into Connor. He was thrown off his feet. He slid across the ground, landing before CJ. CJ looked down and smiled at Connor. He looked up and saw CJ stood over him.
"CJ, what are you doing here?"
Connor asked. "I was coming to find you when I saw you take on an army of cogs. Like, dude, what do you think you're doing?" CJ replied. She helped Connor to his feet. Before he could reply, though, they noticed the cogs closing in. They both dropped into a fighting stance.
"No offense, but what do you expect to do?"
Connor asked. CJ scoffed at Connor's question and pulled out her power star, and her morpher appeared in her other hand. She slotted the star into her morpher with a hard strike of her thumb. The star spun rapidly. "Ninja spin!" she called out. In a flash of white morphing grid energy, she morphed into the white Ninja Steel Ranger. She would not have normally revealed her Ranger identity, but she had to save Connor and quickly before Luca arrived with reinforcements. Connor stood there in shock and awe as the white Ninja Steel Ranger stood before him. The White Ranger ran at the cogs and kicked one of them back. She summoned her Ninja Star Blade and started slashing down the cogs.
"I ain't letting you have all the fun,"
Connor said with a grin. With a glimmer of light, his Zeonizer appeared on his wrist. He brought both wrist-mounted devices together and they interlocked. Then a blue ray of morphing grid energy enveloped him.
"Zeo Ranger 3, blue,"
he called out as the last of the morphing grid fused with him, and with a burst of light he morphed into the blue Zeo Ranger. The Blue Ranger dove in and started the fight, slamming both his feet into a cog. The White Ranger saw the Blue Ranger grab a cog by the wrist and fling it at another cog. "You're a Ranger?" "Okay, that makes a bit more sense," the White Ranger chuckled.
"Yeah, happened the other day. Seems like we are on the same side."
The Blue Ranger nodded. Both the Rangers engaged in battle. The White Ranger slashed several cogs down. The Blue Ranger slammed his fist into one cog, then threw his leg backwards, kicking another back. Within a few moments, the two Rangers took down the small army of cogs. The cogs fell and the Rangers high-fived each other. The air was vibrating with the joy of having another Ranger to fight with. "Nicely done, Connor, but we do need to talk about a few things once we get home," the White Ranger said, concerned.
"Once we are home?" "No, I ain't going home. I am going after the ones attacking the city and the forests,"
the Blue Ranger retaliated. "What? Are you insane? We don't even know where they came from. And the Power Rangers are not under the city's protection act. We are branded as criminals," the White Ranger replied.
"Then so be it. I have to stop these monsters,"
the Blue Ranger growled. "Connor, please, I get it, but this is a war, nothing to shrug off. We have to be calculated and precise with every single move. I shouldn't have morphed, I don't be here," the White Ranger snapped. Suddenly, several energy blasts hit the ground around them. They both backed away from the sparks, and both dropped into their fighting stance, only to face the leader of the city's defensive force, Luca, CJ's partner, the one who did not know that under the White Ranger suit, his beloved stood. Well, seems like you have a new friend," Luca growled. "Yeah, what of it?" the White Ranger retorted. Luca pulled down his sleeve, revealing his morpher. "Quantum power!" he roared. The morphing grid wrapped around Luca, and with a glimmer of red and black light, he morphed into the Quantum Ranger. He aimed his Quantum Defender and fired it at both of the Rangers. The White Ranger slotted her ninja power star into her sword and spun it. Energy encased the blade. She swung her sword, sending her final slash towards the Quantum Ranger. The slash hit the Ranger, throwing him backwards. Both the White Ninja Steel Ranger and the Blue Zero Ranger were hit by multiple blasts from the Quantum Defender. The three of them climbed to their feet. The White Ninja Steel Ranger gripped her sword tightly as she ran at the Quantum Ranger. He shifted his Quantum Defender from blaster mode to blade mode, and both the White Ranger and the Quantum Ranger engaged in an intense dance of clashing swords. The Blue Zero Ranger took his chance and dove into the fight. He threw his fist at the Quantum Ranger, but the Ranger caught it. He then pulled the Blue Ranger in and kneed him in the stomach, knocking the wind out of him. Then he pulled the Ranger close, spun him around. As he did, he wrapped his arm around the Ranger's neck, holding him in place. The Blue Ranger now facing the White Ninja Steel Ranger. "Connor!" the White Ranger muttered quietly. The Quantum Ranger held the Blue Ranger tightly in his grip. His neck was easy to break if he wanted to. "Make a move and I'd kill him," the Quantum Ranger threatened. The White Ranger knew she had to surrender. The Quantum Ranger was not playing around. She lowered her sword and gave up the fight. The Quantum Ranger let out a chuckle. He let go of the Blue Zero Ranger. Then he booted the Ranger in the back, making him stumble forward towards the White Ninja Steel Ranger, and she caught him and helped him to stable himself. The Quantum Ranger's blade started to glow. The Quantum Ranger slashed his sword, and an energy wave rippled off of his blade, which struck both the White and Blue Rangers. Sparks exploded off of them as they dropped down to the ground. The Quantum Ranger strolled over to the fallen Rangers. His Quantum Defender shifted back into its blaster mode as he stood over the two fallen Rangers. "It's time I ask you guys some questions," the Quantum Ranger sneered. The White Ninja Steel Ranger woke up, still morphed. She looked around and saw her new surroundings, a large wooden cage. She was on her knees and her arms elevated by shackles that were chained to the farthest bars of the side walls of the wooden cage. The door opened and Luca walked in. "Hello, Ranger. I would ask you to morph, but I know you won't. Nice move, by the way, locking your morpho before I knocked you out. Your ninja rangers seem to have a few tricks up your sleeves. And Connor hasn't woken up yet, but I can't wait until he does. Being in his civilian form gives us access to more information, and more forms of torture if needed," Luca said with an evil grin. The White Ranger's stomach turned. She had never seen this side of Luca. It made her sick. She wanted to demorph and reveal herself, maybe end this facade, but also show him that his partner, lover, and best friend was currently tied up in his own prison. But more was at stake. She knew that he wanted to know information that she had, but also information that Connor had. She did not know if Connor had it in him to withstand the torture. She looked up at Luca, who morphed before her. He tapped his Quantum Defender against his shoulder. "Now where is the magical village?" the Quantum Ranger asked. The prison was the basement of the Capitol building, and it was used for those who opposed the city and its rules. But the building held other sections for other purposes, like the science labs, a whole floor dedicated to research. There was a young scientist who was about to discover a small pink crystal gem charged with a cocktail of Triceratops energy and the morphing grid. A small crystal gem that would change the young scientist's life forever.